faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, the book I'm interpreting for you is The Power of Empathy. Empathy is a powerful force hidden within our hearts. People who are good at empathy will stand in others' shoes and think from their perspective. And this allows them to have a broader vision, avoid personal biases, and view problems more comprehensively. People with high empathy gain others' affection and trust, which also enables them to unite more forces to solve problems. Through empathy, people can also provide effective support and care, soothe others' emotions, and build deeper, intimate relationships. But achieving empathy isn't easy. Many people think empathy is just sympathizing and comforting others, which is a big misunderstanding. What is true empathy? How can one achieve empathy? This is exactly what this book explores. The author of this book, Arthur C. Macaulay, is a renowned professor and clinical psychologist at Harvard Medical School and a global authority on empathy research. Arthur's research on empathy began with a profound personal experience. His younger brother fled abroad due to drug use and robbery. Arthur kept calling him to communicate, hoping to persuade his brother to return and surrender. But after one phone call ended, his brother chose suicide, which greatly shocked Arthur and made him reflect on what he had done wrong. Yeah. Ultimately, Arthur realized that during his brother's most desperate moments, he didn't make his brother feel loved, understood, and accepted. Instead, he treated his brother as a problem and felt angry and distrustful towards him. Yeah. This made his brother feel abandoned by his family, filled with fear, shame, and guilt, and gave up hope of living. This experience led Arthur to deeply study empathy, hoping that more people could correctly listen and respond through empathy. To bring hope and change to others, avoiding the mistakes he had made. In this book, Arthur details the meaning and role of empathy and provides a series of suggestions to help us achieve empathy better. And after publication, this book received recommendations from multiple media outlets such as CNN, Fox News, and Facebook. Daniel Goleman, the founder of the concept of emotional intelligence and a professor of psychology at Harvard, also praised the book for interpreting the power and skills of empathizing with others with clear and understandable content worth recommending. Next, I'll interpret the main content of this book for you through 3 parts. First, what is empathy? Second, what are the positive effects of empathy? Third, how to achieve empathy. First, let's talk about what empathy is.
The author defines empathy as accurately understanding others' feelings and thoughts and responding accordingly.
The core of empathy is understanding, which requires us to set aside our own stance and see things from others' perspectives. Empathetic people usually don't respond immediately. They ask a series of questions and spend a lot of time thinking, all to put themselves in others' shoes and understand them accurately. For example, a guy is suffering after a breakup. An empathetic person, to comfort him, would ask him to talk about what the other person was like. What was the reason for the breakup? What is the guy thinking inside? In this process, the empathetic person listens attentively to understand the guy's feelings and thoughts at that moment, summarizes them, and gives feedback to him. The empathetic person will also ask what help the guy needs now and provide help based on his needs. This makes him feel that his feelings and thoughts are seen, understood, and accepted, thus gaining comfort. However, in daily life, it's not easy to set aside one's own stance to understand others. People are more accustomed to giving quick responses from their own perspectives. And, for instance, when comforting someone after a breakup, some might say that breakups are common, don't worry too much, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Others might say, when I'm unhappy, I go shopping or watch movies. You should try it too. These responses don't try to understand the other person's feelings and thoughts at that moment, and their comforting effect is not as good as empathy. Some people confuse empathy with sympathy, but they're not the same. I summarize their differences in 2 points.
The first difference is that when expressing sympathy, people imagine how they would feel and think in the same situation, assuming others feel the same, and use that to express sympathy and offer help.
Whereas empathetic people know that everyone has their own unique thoughts and feelings about the same event. We need to first understand the other person's actual situation to make an appropriate response. For example, Xiaolong was laid off by his company. If expressing sympathy, I might say, Xiaolong, you have no income now. Paying daily expenses must be tough. I'll recommend a job for you. I think the hardest thing about losing a job is the lack of money. Xio Wang must think so too, and what he needs most is to find a new job. But this is just my preconceived imagination. Xiao Wan has his own specific circumstances. Maybe he isn't short of money. This work experience made him realize he's not good at communicating with people. Having encountered many problems at work, Xiao Wan's current distress is how to improve his communication skills. If expressing empathy, I'd ask Xiaolong to share his views on this job and his future plans. When I discover Xiaolong wants to improve communication skills, I can recommend relevant courses or books, or share my own experiences. That's what he truly needs. The second difference between empathy and sympathy is that empathy always maintains an attitude of equality and respect, while sympathy can sometimes give a condescending sense of superiority. There was a cancer patient named Ruth who, because the cancer spread to her spine, had to start using crutches and a wheelchair. One day, she encountered a middle-aged woman at the rehab center who, without Ruth's consent, grabbed her hand and began praying, begging God to drive the curse away from Ruth. The woman's intention might have been sympathy and comfort for Ruth. But in Ruth's view, the woman's behavior was saying, "You're such a pitiful person." Ruth felt she'd become a prop for others to display sympathy, not a dignified individual. She wanted to shout, "I don't need your pretentious prayers and pity." Those who understand empathy don't see cancer patients as pitiful people who can do nothing. They view them as individuals with dignity and autonomy, just like themselves. When interacting, we should seek their opinions more and understand their feelings. If wanting to offer help, don't act unilaterally. Ask the patient's wishes and provide assistance according to their needs. Also, don't casually share their cancer experience with others. As Ruth said, she didn't want to be a friend providing death topics. She preferred to be one teaching people how to live. How does empathy arise? The author believes empathy is a product of evolution, designed to help organisms reproduce better. Without empathy, we couldn't understand others' feelings and thoughts. We'd be indifferent, even to friends and family. When seeing others' pain and hardship, we turn away, unwilling to help. In such cases, an individual's survival chances are obviously very low. It's precisely through empathy that we can build mutually supportive social relationships to survive. Under evolution's influence, the brain has developed new structures providing a biological basis for empathy. Neuroscientists have discovered that empathy is closely tied to the neocortex in the brain. The neocortex, also known as the thinking brain, is the most recently evolved structure in the brain. The outermost convoluted cortex of the brain mostly belongs to the thinking brain, primarily responsible for rational thought. And deeper within the brain lies the emotional brain, the ancient region producing primary emotional impulses like desire, anger, and excitement, which predates the thinking brain. Over millions of years of evolution, an interactive relationship developed between the thinking and emotional brains. The thinking brain can reflect on emotions and adjust behavior through reasoning, slowing automatic emotional reactions. Under the thinking brain's influence, primary emotional impulses gradually evolve into care, devotion, and kindness. These advanced interpersonal emotions form the foundation of empathy. Neuroscience researchers conducted an experiment severing neural circuits between monkeys' thinking and emotional brains. As a result, these monkeys lost the ability to judge friendliness or hostility, lived isolated lives dominated by anger and fear, and became incapable of building empathetic connections. Empathy isn't solely tied to brain structure, it's also shaped by early life experiences. If children experience empathy during development, like having someone share their joy when happy, and receive listening and comfort during pain, they'll feel empathy's positive effects. Understood and cared for. Children who experience empathy will naturally pass these positive feelings to others. Conversely, children rarely experiencing empathy, whose feelings are often ignored, struggle to develop this ability. If someone's never been understood, they naturally can't understand others. Such children often grow up insecure, hiding emotions, and typically ignore or deny others' pain. The author suggests that people who lack empathy can seek help from psychologists to deepen their awareness of their own emotions. Build emotional connections with others and gradually learn empathy. All right, let's summarize the first part. Empathy means accurately understanding others' feelings and thoughts and responding accordingly. Empathy requires us to set aside our own stance and understand others with an attitude of equality and respect. Right here, right now. Empathy focuses on specific, unique personal feelings. It arises from interactions between emotional and thinking brains and is also influenced by early life experiences. Next, in the second part, we'll discuss the positive effects of empathy. We'll mainly cover 4 points. The first positive effect is healing painful traumas. Many pains and traumas stem from past experiences. These experiences trap people in negative emotions like sadness, anger, or fear, unable to move forward. This stagnant state makes them circle through past traumas, hard to escape alone. Through empathy, people experience care and support from others. These positive emotions break old, repetitive cycles, showing more life possibilities. Meanwhile, others' empathy toward us deepens self-understanding, clarifies pain sources, and enables change. As a psychologist, the author has witnessed many cases where empathy sparked change. A woman named Lisa sought sedatives for emotional and sleep issues. Lisa wasn't interested in therapy, just quick fixes, while the author believed exploring root causes was essential. So the author inquired about Lisa's family situation. Lisa shared her father died 3 years prior. She deeply loved him, and her husband got laid off and depressed a year ago. She worried about finances and her husband's impact on their children. Throughout this, the author listened empathetically, responding appropriately to draw out more thoughts and feelings. Lisa grew increasingly emotional and finally broke down crying. She told the author she'd exhausted herself pretending life was normal. Voicing her struggles brought immense relief. Through this talk, Lisa gained new self-awareness. She realized suppressing grief over her father's death and anxiety about marriage caused her emotional and sleep issues. Lisa decided to spend more time in therapy to confront her father's death and heal the inner pain it caused. She also decided to strengthen communication with her family to jointly face their struggles. It was empathy that helped Lisa find this new path to healing, not just relying on medication to avoid pain. Empathies. The second positive effect is evoking integrated love. The author divides intimate relationships into 3 stages, with integrated love being the final third stage. The first 2 are idealization and overgeneralization. In these stages, people see not the real person but fantasies from their own minds. In idealization, passion blinds people to see perfection without flaws. But passion fades, and with more time together, people enter overgeneralization. Then we see more partner flaws, like constant negativity or laziness. After ideals shatter, people may swing to the opposite extreme. Using flaws to define the whole person as unchangeable creates friction and conflict. Only by moving beyond overgeneralization can relationships reach mutual understanding, integrated love. The author believes empathy is key to entering integrated love. Through empathy, we understand their true feelings and interactions, their desires, fears, and motivations. Empathy frees us from prejudice to see both strengths and weaknesses. Love that chooses someone after clear-eyed understanding endures time's test. Understanding our partner helps us express love better and build trusting intimacy. The third positive effect of empathy is fostering humility. Empathy requires setting aside self-centered views to adopt others' perspectives. This process reveals diverse viewpoints. Our thoughts are just one fragment of truth, not absolute, naturally cultivating humility. Empathy also makes us realize that, despite being different individuals, no one is an island. Everyone lives with mutual assistance. As children, under the protection of parents and teachers, we explore and understand the world. As we grow up in life and work, we all need help from others. This makes us understand that everyone in the world is equal. The meaning of our lives lies in returning the help we receive from others to more people. This awareness of mutual aid also fosters humility and empathy. The fourth positive effect is fostering tolerance and empathy, allowing us to enter others' hearts and experience their various feelings and thoughts. At this point, we discover that, regardless of age, race, or gender, our emotions are actually universal. The good and bad displayed by others can also be seen in ourselves. Fear of failure, anger when hurt, and the desire for love and understanding. These emotions exist in everyone's heart. So, when others make mistakes or behave in ways we dislike, empathy reminds us that they may have their reasons. If we were in the same situation, we might do the same thing. Thus, we can approach with a tolerant attitude for deeper understanding rather than rushing to judgment. But the author points out that tolerance has boundaries. Sometimes people use the banner of tolerance to condone behaviors that harm others. For example, some wives tolerate husbands who abuse them, or parents see their children bullying others but don't intervene or educate. Tolerance does not mean approving of all behaviors. We should ask ourselves, is my tolerance for understanding others, responding better, solving problems, or to avoid conflict and maintain superficial peace?
If it's the latter, such excessive tolerance will only cause more problems.
All right, let's summarize the second part. Empathy can heal painful traumas and bring growth and change. Empathy evokes integrated love, allowing people to see the real other, build lasting, intimate relationships based on mutual understanding, and foster humility and tolerance. Next, in the third part, we'll discuss how to achieve empathy. I've summarized the book's content into 5 key points. The first key point is listening, which includes listening to oneself and listening to others. Before listening to others, we must first listen to our own feelings and thoughts, then temporarily set these views aside to empty our minds. This avoids distorting others' true feelings with preconceptions. The author sometimes gathers multiple patients for group discussions to deepen their understanding through mutual exchange. And in one group session, a woman named Elizabeth shared her separation from her husband and property division issues. 2 other members, Tom and Teresa, both with bitter divorces, immediately assumed Elizabeth's husband would scheme against her interests. Elizabeth insisted her husband was decent and kind, not someone to financially exploit her. Tom and Teresa accused Elizabeth of naivety, warning against trusting her partner. By failing to examine their own distrust first, they projected their experiences onto Elizabeth, distorting reality and preventing true empathy. When we set aside our own views, we can truly listen to others. While listening, we must observe gestures, movements, and facial expressions. These details help accurately grasp their thoughts. For better listening, the author suggests summarizing the other's feelings before responding. This process simultaneously deepens understanding through reconsideration. If others disagree with our summary, discussing it leads to more accurate understanding. The second key point is using open-ended questions. Empathy requires two-way communication. Beyond listening, we actively ask questions to understand feelings through responses. The author categorizes questions as closed-ended or open-ended. Closed-ended questions seek validation for pre-existing answers, not genuine perspectives. For example, after meeting her daughter's boyfriend, a mother asks worriedly, "Do you really think he's right for you?" The subtext is the mother's disapproval. She's steering agreement rather than seeking opinions, making this closed-ended. The author believes closed-ended questions aren't communication, but power games. If the daughter complies and says he's unsuitable, she'll feel controlled and uncomfortable. If the daughter ignores her mother's guidance and says, "I think he suits me well," then the mother will feel her daughter is disobedient, causing disputes and conflicts. However answered, closed-ended questions only create distance between people. To achieve empathy, we must drop preconceptions and ask open-ended questions without agendas. For example, a mother might gently ask, "What attracted you to choose him?" Well, this way, the daughter willingly shares true thoughts and the mother better understands her. Empathy's the third key point is slowing down. When emotionally charged, one's perspective narrows, making it hard to accurately express feelings. So, when someone's highly excited, fearful, or angry, slow the conversation to help them calm down. Specifically ask what happened and why it triggered strong emotions. Retelling experiences naturally creates observer perspective, creating distance from immediate emotions. As they gradually calm down, empathy's fourth key is noticing bodily sensations. Physiological synchrony occurs during communication. For example, interacting with an angry person makes your heart race and blood pressure rise. You feel their anger. The author believes emotions and physical responses are deeply connected. Experiencing others' emotions naturally triggers matching physiological reactions. Thus, empathetic people use not just their minds but their bodies to understand. The bodily sensations we experience during empathy likely mirror the other's current state. We must analyze what emotions underlie these sensations to deeply understand others. Crucially, empathy requires feeling others' emotions without being overwhelmed, since physiological synchrony affects them too. When we show anger or frustration, the other's emotions worsen too. Skilled psychologists, while feeling others' negative emotions, express calmness and warmth through facial expressions and body language to soothe them, ensuring empathy proceeds smoothly. And the fifth key point of empathy is setting boundaries. To ease others' insecurity, some share similar painful experiences, but this often backfires. A patient tormented by depression told a therapist about suicidal thoughts. The therapist responded, "I take suicide discussions very seriously. 3 years ago, my niece died by suicide." The therapist intended to show concern and build connection through shared pain, but it risked confusing the patient. The patient might think, "Why share this? Should we discuss your niece or my problem?" The patient could even feel guilty. My issues reminded the therapist of trauma. Am I being selfish? The author notes, knowing others share your pain doesn't make yours disappear. Empathy focuses on an individual's unique present experience to provide understanding and support, helping others solve their own problems.
Thus, set boundaries during empathy. Keep discussions centered on their feelings, not our opinions.
If asked for our views, gently redirect focus to their issues. A man struggling with marriage once asked the author's opinion on infidelity. The author replied, "Guessing other men's views on cheating won't help your marriage." The client agreed. The author then continued discussing the client's specific situation with advice and support. So far, we've discussed empathy's positive aspects and how to practice it.
But the author notes empathy also has a dark side. Even villains can weaponize it.
For example, some health supplement sellers target isolated elderly people. They know these seniors crave companionship and someone to talk to. By frequently visiting them with feigned concern, they gain trust to sell overpriced, useless products. This kind of empathy isn't motivated by helping others, but by gaining personal benefits. How can we guard against the harm from empathy's dark side? The author provides a series of suggestions in the book. I'll focus on two main ones. The first is to understand your own desires. We need to reflect on what we truly want. It might be money, health, respect from others, or finding a compatible partner. Those who exploit empathy's dark side often use our cravings as bait to gain our trust. Just like the health supplement sellers mentioned earlier, who always target elderly people craving companionship and care. If someone seems to fulfill our desires, we must stay vigilant. Don't let excitement cloud judgment. There's no free lunch, and hidden traps may exist. The second piece of advice is to be cautious of abrupt familiarity. Human relationships develop gradually. Genuine intimacy requires time to build trust. If someone acts overly familiar after just a few words, asking private questions or volunteering personal information, you should be careful. Such people often have ulterior motives. What they share about themselves could all be lies. The author believes when communicating with strangers, we should trust our instincts. If someone's behavior feels excessively familiar and makes you uncomfortable, we should decisively reject it. Even if they show anger or disgust, don't feel you've done anything wrong. This is self-protection. Besides those who use empathy for personal gain, the author warns us to also beware of people lacking empathy. These individuals are highly self-centered, always demanding others meet their needs, unwilling to understand others. Interacting with them is draining. Best to keep distance. How can we identify people who lack empathy? The book summarizes 3 traits. If someone exhibits even one, they might be empathy deficient. The first trait is emotional volatility, hot and cold attitudes. Empathy stems from interaction between thinking and emotional brains, requiring calm reflection as foundation. If someone is emotionally volatile, when facing setbacks, they either throw tantrums and break things or avoid all communication. He says nothing at all, which shows he lacks the calmness and rationality required for empathy. It's difficult to reason with such people, and they refuse to understand perspectives different from their own. Lacking empathy. The second characteristic is blaming others. Some people attribute their problems to others. Work setbacks happen because colleagues hold them back. Family conflicts occur because partners don't understand them. They always start from their own perspective, distorting objective facts. They clearly lack the ability to set aside biases, empathize, and understand others. The third characteristic of lacking empathy is inconsistency between words and actions. In short, some people say one thing but do another. A friend told the author that while dining out with his in-laws, his father-in-law kept discussing a philosophy of peaceful coexistence, saying he'd give everyone space to do as they like. Later, a young man with earrings walked past their table. The father-in-law's face turned red with rage as he shouted angrily, "I want to rip those earrings off his ears." The author believes this inconsistency stems from excessive focus on one's own needs and desires. When situations meet their needs, they act kind and considerate. But when situations don't meet their needs, they reveal selfish and careless tendencies. When overly self-concerned, it's naturally hard to empathize from others' perspectives. All right, let's summarize the third part. To achieve empathy, we must listen, ask open-ended questions, slow down, notice bodily sensations, and set boundaries. Empathy also has a dark side. We must understand our own desires and beware abrupt familiarity to avoid harm from empathy's dark side. And be cautious of those lacking empathy. Speaking of the power of empathy, this book has been mostly introduced. The author believes empathy creates emotional connections for deep, genuine relationships, where belonging replaces loneliness and hope replaces despair. Hearts closed by fear and pain reopen through understanding and care, radiating vibrant vitality. This is empathy's power to spark growth and change. That concludes our interpretation. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.